Hello friends, how are you doing? I hope you're doing great. Now, today I have a very important thing to discuss here, and I'll make you people understand this. It is one of the factors that determine the number of selectees that will be scheduled for an interview in a certain embassy. And this, I consider it as one of the main factors. And this is the family size. If you have subscribed to this channel and you have put the notification bell on and you have been following my videos, you might be knowing that the number of visas for a DV lottery, they are 55,000 per every DV lottery. And these 55,000 visas, they are meant for both the principal applicant and the derivatives. In other words, both the derivatives and the principal applicants, they share in these visas. There are no side visas for derivatives. It is the 55,000 visas that are shared with both the principal applicant and their beneficiaries. So having known that, it's now clear that the number of interviews per embassy depends on the size of the families. And I want to discuss this way, that when you are applying for the DV lottery, the one known in the case is the principal applicant. That is the person applying. And since the principal applicant is the one that has been selected, then there are people attached to that principal applicant if they had families. So if you are an applicant and you were selected and you have a family, of course you included the family in the application. Let's say, for example, you have a family of 4. That is you, the wife or the husband, and some 2 kids. So when you win, that is 1 visa. Then your wife or your husband takes the 2nd visa, and the children take the 3rd and the 4th visas, in total becoming 4 visas out of the 55,000 visas. So those are 4 visas from the 55,000 visas. And now let's come to the topic. The family size will determine the number of interviews scheduled in an embassy. You might find out that one embassy has principal applicant, and in that country, the principal applicants, they tend not to have families. In other countries, you'll find them having a high rate or high tendency of having families. So in one particular embassy, you find, for example, 1,500 applicants, 1,500. And of these 1,500 applicants, you find that around 1,200, 1,200 of them have families. So if we take, for example, the 1,200, 1,200 applicants with families have a family of 3. That is to mean it is 1,200 multiplied by 3, and that brings about 3,600. So if they are successful, that means 3,600 visas out of the 55,000 visas have been removed from the 55,000 visas. And that means that embassy will have fewer interviews because visas get exhausted after every interview. After this interview, 3 of them they have gone. After the next interview, another 3. After the next interview, another 4, depending on the size of the family, and therefore keeps on decreasing the number of interviews to be scheduled in a particular embassy. I hope I've explained it at length and clearly. Now, if you applied as single and later on you married, that is a visa added. So you are single, meaning you were to use one visa. But since you have gotten married and you have added the spouse, then those are 2 visas from the 55,000 visas. Another thing is this. Let's say you marry within the early stages of the DV lottery, and then your wife conceives, or you as the wife conceives. And then before you are scheduled for the interview, the child comes. So that is to mean you applied as single, then you married, and then you have a kid. You become 3. You applied as 1, but you have become 3. So those are 3 visas from the 55,000 visas. And that means you decrease the number of interviews that will be scheduled at your embassy. Another instance is this. If you were married when applying, you are 2 of you, your husband or your wife, and you yourself. Those were 2 visas. And then along the way, as you're waiting for the interview or during the DV process, you happen to be blessed by a kid. That is another visa added on top, and it becomes 3. So you are reducing the number of interviews to be scheduled. Another way, you find a family, one person applies as a single applicant, and then in the process of the DV lottery, she gets married or he gets married, and the spouse comes in with stepchildren, let's say for example 3. So that is one principal applicant, and then has added a spouse plus other 3 kids. It becomes a family with a total of 5 members. So it was 1 visa, but now 4 others have added, and that is 5 visas from the 55,000 visas, and therefore it reduces the number of interviews to be scheduled at the embassy. Now let's come to the other side. It may also happen that you apply as a family of 3, and then along the way something tragic happens, and God forbid that one of you passes on. Then you've lost 1. That is to mean you have decreased the number of visas used by 1, and therefore you're increasing the number of interviews to be scheduled at your embassy. So this is what I'm saying. If something happened and you applied as a family and some of the members get lost, those are some of the visas that have been spared within the 55,000 visas, therefore increasing the number of interviews to be scheduled at that embassy because of those extra visas. So if a family decreases, visas become available. But if the family increases, then visas they decrease, and therefore reducing the number of interviews to be scheduled. Having discussed that, we now come to the conclusion that the number of interviews to be scheduled at any embassy will also depend upon the size of the family, and we call it the family rate. Some countries have higher rates than the others. You find that other countries have high tendency of principal applicants having families, while other countries have lower tendency of principal applicants having families. So thank you guys for watching that video. Please watch it over and over again until you get the concept. Thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share with your friends, and let's meet in the next video.